What if your life's brightest moment turned into your darkest hour? This was the chilling reality for Jessie Blodgett, a promising young actress, musician, and radiant spirit who, on a Sunday evening in 2013, took her final bow to the sound of thunderous applause. As she stood on stage in Hartford, Wisconsin, the spotlight illuminating her face, it was clear to everyone that she was born for it. The spotlight loved her, and she loved it right back. After the curtains fell and the applause faded, the cast and crew gathered for a pool party to celebrate their successful adaptation of the renowned musical Fiddler on the Roof. Jessie, known for her outgoing persona, was in her element, yet as the night wore on, the behavior of two male colleagues cast a shadow over her joyous evening. Later that night, Jessie poured her feelings into her journal, expressing her frustrations and fears. She wrote about the men in her life, the ones who misconstrued her friendly nature for something more. Jessie was not one to back down from a challenge. She was determined to confront these problems without fear. Her journal entry ended with a hopeful note: "I am not helpless. I will recognize problems and confront them without fear. God be with me." Before she turned in for the night, Jessie confided in her mother about the unsettling advances from two men at the party. She wondered aloud why it was so difficult for men and women to remain just friends. Her words, full of concern and confusion, would later echo ominously in the light of the tragedy to follow. As Jessie went to bed that night, she had no idea of the horror that awaited her. Joy Blodgett, like any caring mother, expected to find her daughter sleeping peacefully. The reality was far more terrifying. As the hands of the clock nudged towards noon, Joy returned home for lunch, anticipating her daughter's infectious smile and melodious piano notes. The house was unusually quiet. Jessie's room, where she expected to see the familiar sight of her daughter asleep, held a chilling scene instead. Jessie lay there, motionless. Her mother's call of her name echoed in the room, unanswered. The silence was deafening. Joy approached the bed, her heart pounding against her chest like a drum. She reached out, her fingers brushing against Jessie's shoulder. The icy touch sent an ominous chill creeping down her spine. Pulling back the covers, Joy was met with a sight that would haunt her forever. Jessie's delicate features were masked with an unnatural bluish hue. Her once vibrant eyes closed, her spirit extinguished. The cold reality began to set in. Jessie was not asleep, she was lifeless. Her daughter's hair, normally shining and full of life, was soaking wet, clinging to her forehead. Jessie's nightclothes too were drenched. A wave of dread washed over Joy as her gaze fell upon the haunting ligature marks on Jessie's neck. The marks bore the horrifying testament of a struggle, a final fight for life. Joy's heart pounded against her ribs like a trapped animal. The room spun as she dialed 911, her voice trembling as she relayed her worst fears. Her daughter, Jessie, might be dead. The call to her husband, Buck, was no less painful. The words hung heavy in the air, a dreadful truth that no parent should ever have to utter. As her world shattered around her, Joy was forced to confront the unthinkable. A monster had trespassed into their sanctuary, their home. The invader had not just stolen their belongings, but had taken something far more precious, something irreplaceable, their only child, their Jessie. In a matter of hours, the Blodgett home had transformed from a place of love and security to a horrifying crime scene. As investigators swarmed the Blodgett home, the daunting task of finding Jessie's killer began. The once jovial residence was now a crime scene, its walls echoing the haunting silence of a life abruptly ended. The first responders arrived promptly, their faces etched with professionalism, masking the shock and sorrow that undoubtedly lurked beneath. Upon entering the house, the investigators were met with a chilling sight. Jessie's lifeless body lay on her bed, her once vibrant features now consumed by an unnatural bluish hue. Her hair and nightclothes were soaking wet, and the iciness of her skin sent shivers through the room. The disturbing sight prompted an immediate flurry of activity as the first responders began their critical work. The evidence was grim yet telling. Deep abrasions on Jessie's wrists suggested she had been bound, her freedom cruelly snatched away. The ligature marks on her neck were even more damning. The investigators deduced that Jessie had likely been strangled, her precious life extinguished by an unknown assailant. The crime scene was meticulously combed for clues. Each piece of evidence was handled with extreme care, the investigators aware that even the smallest detail could hold the key to solving this horrifying puzzle. The room was filled with a palpable air of determination. The officers resolved to bring Jessie's killer to justice. As the hours ticked by, the magnitude of the task became increasingly clear. The investigators were dealing with a highly calculated crime, the culprit having left no obvious traces behind. The question of who loomed ominously over the room, the absence of a clear answer adding to the already heavy atmosphere. Meanwhile, Jessie's parents, Joy and Buck, watched the surreal events unfold from a distance. Their world was shattered, their hearts heavy with a grief that words could hardly express. Yet amidst their sorrow, they found solace in the unwavering commitment of the investigators, their resolve offering a glimmer of hope in the darkest of times. While the Blodgetts reeled from their loss, investigators were determined to bring Jessie's killer to justice. The pursuit of truth had begun. The quest to unmask the monster who had extinguished a star that had only just begun to shine. In any murder investigation, everyone is a suspect. But who would want to harm a bright, young actress like Jessie? The question hung in the air, heavy with the weight of unanswered questions and aching hearts. In the shadows of suspicion, two men from the cast party emerged as potential suspects. Both well into their 40s, they had shared the stage with Jessie and had later, allegedly, crossed lines of propriety during the post-performance celebration. Jessie herself had voiced discomfort over their advances, their attention turning from admiring to unsettling. The first man was known for his charm and charisma, both on and off the stage. But his charm had a darker side. Jessie had confided in her mother that he had been so aggressive that he had pulled her onto his lap against her will. A friendly gesture, perhaps, in his mind, but it was clearly unwanted and invasive to Jessie. The second man, on the other hand, was known for his quiet demeanor, yet his quietness didn't translate to respectfulness. He too had made advances towards Jessie, mistaking her friendliness for an invitation for something more. Both men, it seemed, had mistaken Jessie's friendly and outgoing nature as a signal for their inappropriate advances. It's a tale as old as time. The misinterpretation of friendliness as flirtation, especially by older men towards younger women. These two men had turned an evening of celebration into one of discomfort for Jessie. But could discomfort lead to murder? Could admiration turn so dark, so quickly? As investigators dug deeper into their backgrounds, their interactions with Jessie, their alibis, they were faced with the task of separating the innocent from the guilty. Did either of these men have the capacity to transform from a fellow actor to a murderer? Did jealousy, rejection, or obsession play a role? The puzzle pieces were scattered, and the picture they formed was far from clear. As investigators dug deeper, the question remained, which of these men, if any, had turned from admirers to murderers? Those who knew Jessie best were left grappling with her loss and the mystery surrounding her death. Jessie's vibrant spirit and zest for life had left a deep impression on everyone she encountered. Her closest friends often reminisced about her infectious laughter, her unwavering passion for music, and her unwavering commitment to making the world a better place. One of her friends said, "Jessie was the kind of person who could light up a room with her presence. She was a beacon of positivity and joy. When we heard about her death, it was like a light got switched off. It was hard to believe someone as full of life as Jessie was no longer with us." Her parents, Joy and Buck, were shattered by their daughter's untimely demise. They remembered their daughter as a beautiful, talented, and compassionate young woman who had so much potential. Joy, her voice choked with emotion, said, "Jessie was our sunshine, our pride, and then one day, she was just gone." As for the suspects, Jessie's friends and family were in disbelief. The idea that someone Jessie knew could have done this to her was unthinkable. The two men Jessie had mentioned in her journal were particularly under scrutiny. Friends were shocked to hear of their inappropriate behavior at the party. One of her co-actors said, "I knew those guys. They were older, but Jessie was friendly with everyone. It's terrifying to think they might have been involved." Jessie's music teacher, who had nurtured her talent from a young age, was especially affected by her death. "I watched Jessie grow from a shy girl into a confident young woman who loved music more than anything. To think that her life was cut short in such a brutal way is unbearable." Her parents were adamant that justice needed to be served. Buck, his voice filled with determination, said, "We want to know who did this to our daughter. We want them to pay for what they have done. Jessie deserves justice." Despite the pain and the unanswered questions, Jessie's loved ones found solace in their memories of her. They clung to the sound of her laughter, her love for music, and her dreams for the future. They pledged to keep her spirit alive and to fight for justice in her name. Their shared grief was a testament to the impact Jessie had on their lives. Her loss was deeply felt, but her memory continued to inspire and motivate those who loved her. They resolved to honor Jessie's life by advocating for justice and keeping her spirit alive in their hearts. Jessie's sudden and tragic death left a void that could never be filled, but her friends and family were determined to ensure her legacy lived on. They were united in their quest for justice, fueled by their love for Jessie and their shared memories of her. Jessie's loved ones could only hope that her killer would be found and brought to justice. Despite the tireless efforts of investigators, the question of who killed Jessie Blodgett remains. A cloud of uncertainty hangs heavy over this unsolved mystery, casting a long and unsettling shadow. With each passing day, the puzzle pieces of this tragic case seem to scatter further apart, leaving law enforcement and the local community grappling with the chilling unknown. The investigation into Jessie's untimely death has been extensive and exhaustive. Detectives tirelessly sifted through countless leads, hoping to unearth the kernel of truth hidden beneath the layers of this perplexing case. Yet the identity of the perpetrator remains elusive, with every promising lead seeming to dissolve into a dead end. The lack of resolution has taken its toll on the small town of Hartford, Wisconsin. The locals, once living in a peaceful community, now find themselves caught in a web of fear and uncertainty. The haunting question, who took one of their brightest stars from the stage of life, remains unanswered. Jessie's death has left a profound impact on her community. Her absence echoes through the halls of the local theater, her laughter and songs replaced by a deafening silence. Her friends and fellow actors are left with the memory of her vibrant spirit, her infectious energy, and her undeniable talent. The spotlight she once commanded now shines on an empty stage, a poignant reminder of a life cut tragically short. Amidst the grief and the unanswered questions, Jessie's legacy continues to resonate. Her love for music, her passion for acting, and her unwavering optimism continue to inspire those who knew her. In the face of the unresolved mystery of her death, her spirit endures, a testament to a life lived with passion and purpose. The investigation into Jessie's death continues, a race against time to bring her killer to justice. Yet, as the days turn into weeks and weeks into years, the mystery remains unresolved, leaving a community in suspense and a family in mourning. As we remember Jessie, we're left to ponder the chilling reality of her untimely death. The haunting melody of her unfinished symphony continues to play, a poignant reminder of a life abruptly silenced and a mystery that remains to this day unsolved. Jessie's death serves as a stark reminder of the dangers that lurk in even the most unsuspecting places. It's a chilling affirmation that our world as we know it is not always as safe as we'd like to believe. It's a wake-up call, a call to reflection, urging us to question our assumptions of trust and safety. Jessie's story is a tragic tale of a promising life snuffed out, a beacon of talent extinguished prematurely, a young woman brimming with dreams and aspirations silenced in the most horrific way. Her story forces us to confront the harsh realities that exist beneath the facade of our day-to-day lives. It compels us to question the supposed sanctity of our personal spaces, the very places we deem the safest. Beneath the horrifying details of Jessie's demise, we find the broader issues of safety and trust. We're reminded of the importance of vigilance, of not taking for granted the people we allow into our lives and our homes. Jessie's story underscores the need for us to protect ourselves and our loved ones, to be aware of our surroundings, and to never underestimate the potential harm that can come from misplaced trust. But beyond these grim realities, Jessie's story also serves as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Despite the unbearable grief, Jessie's family, friends, and community continue to seek justice, to fight for the truth, to ensure that her untimely death is not in vain. It's a call to reflection, a call to action. We must not allow Jessie's death to be just another tragic story. We owe it to her and to ourselves to ensure that her legacy is one of change, of heightened awareness, and of justice. In this quest for truth and justice, we remember Jessie, not for the tragic circumstances of her death, but for the vibrant, promising life she led. We remember her as the talented musician, the aspiring actress, the beloved daughter and friend. We remember her for her courage and her resilience, for her spirit that continues to inspire many. As we seek answers, we honor Jessie's memory and continue the fight for justice in her name. As we reflect on Jessie's story, let us carry her spirit with us. Let her memory guide us towards a safer, more vigilant world.